Hey Mark, you all right?
How's it going, mate? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, loud and clear. Just check
You've got a
everything.
much more professional setup than I've got, I'm afraid.
I wouldn't say that.
No,
Yeah.
but it looks very good.
It's very roughly put together. So how you doing? All right?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Yourself, you keeping okay? You obviously keeping working through the whole craziness of this year.
Yeah. How are you finding it?
Yeah, it's I work in visual effects actually as a day job. So TV's kind of just about kept going really. So it's one of the industries I think that's kind of been all right. So we managed to work from home
Hmm.
and that's kept going. But in terms of rock and roll, it's not been the best year to release an album, I don't think.
Yeah, well, at least you didn't have to retrain for another job.
Well, true. Yeah. No, I can't complain. It's it's been a shocker of a year, hasn't it, for a lot of people? I feel really sorry for in the music or entertainment business. It's been terrible, but hopefully next year everyone will want to go out every night and start enjoying themselves again.
Yeah, hopefully. So we're here to talk about your new album, Stockholm. It's your fifth Milltown Brothers album. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it was released digitally in November, and it features 8 brand new tracks. So it's been 5 years since your last album, Long Road. Um, when did you start thinking about doing this one?
Um, Probably about a couple of years ago. What tends to happen is that because we've known each other such a long time, and we're actually go back to being at school together. We're always keep in touch,
Mhm.
but we all do different things. So I'll tend to write a bunch of songs over a period of time, and then kind of think, well, what do you think? Eventually play them to a couple of members of the band, and if they're interested and they want to do it, we kind of stumble into it. Really, there's never any grand plan. I think that's why it takes so long, really. But that's what we do. And James, who's the bass player, he set up a studio in his garage. So he was wanting to produce it and record it and do it. So that kind of made it a lot easier. So we could do it over a period of time as opposed to all getting together and having to do it quickly. When we did the last one, Long Road, we actually ended up all going to Spain because we knew someone had a studio out there. And that was a really good way of doing it as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it was just so it took quite a while. It took about 6-7 months on and off,
Mhm.
to put it together. And James had a kind of clear view on the sound he wanted it to be, so that's how it kind of evolved, really.
And has that always been your writing process? You write the songs by yourself and then present them to the band, and then they're worked on.
Yeah, more and more. I think when we did Slinky, the first album, it was a bit more collaborative, and certainly myself and my brother Simon wrote a lot together then. But as we've got older and our lives have kind of, we live in different parts of the country, so it gets more and more difficult.
Hmm. And it was released digitally in November. Was the album finished before lockdown, or did you have to finish off during?
No, we finished it just in February, and we were going to release it in May or whatever. But I think and we actually put out, well, we say put out, we gently released some songs in April, and then talked to Andy, and Andy said, well, why don't you give me a bit of time to sort of like build up to the album? So then we just held back till November to sort of get it released and try and get some publicity around it.
And I've seen on some of the Facebook groups for Milltown Brothers that fans are crying out for a digital release. Is that going to happen?
Yes, yeah, we are. We're in the process of putting some CDs together. We're
Hmm.
we've got some really great small hardcore fans, small group of
Yeah.
hardcore fans, and we want to keep them interested. So yeah, that's definitely what a plan is. And we work with a guy who's going to put that together for us.
Well, I love the album. It's really great. And
That's great.
the first single you put out was Stockholm. Great. And there's an extended version on the album. Is that correct? Um,
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that song? What was the genesis?
So that is the actual story is you could say, oh, it was some guy in early 90s rock band who was playing in Stockholm, and it's about meeting, having an evening with a girl, just meeting each other, getting on very well, walking through Stockholm as it turned out, and just really getting on. But then the story is the girl is a bit older than the guy, who's only a young guy. And it's just the difference in lives, and then they get on really well. It all plays out, and then in the morning she goes off to work, and he gets on a flight home. So it's quite a simple story, but I thought it was now that I'm a lot older and married with kids, obviously it's.
But when you're writing songs, do you look for stories? Do you like to have stories in your songs?
I think so. I don't know why. I always tending to write about couples. Seems to be a theme. I mean, a lot of the time, the last album, Long Road, was quite a personal album. Actually, it didn't turn out to be that way, but I think a lot of the lyrics were about my family life and how what that meant to me. And I think this one, it was a bit of a reaction. I was trying to make it less so, it's a bit more musical and a bit less lyrical. I think that was a definite decision, but yeah, it tends to go that way. That it's either lots of people walking around places seems to be a theme I fall into, and sort of how that interplays really.
Do you like to observe, people?
Yes,
like people watching.
Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, exactly that. I'll be really honest, and I don't know whether this is, but the best lyrics I write are when I write the song. The first 2 or 3 times I play it is what kind of comes out without sitting down and writing it. And I try to keep whatever comes out is what it's about, and then you try and keep hold as many lyrics as you can, and then just tie them together really. So it's never really. I never personally say, right, I want to write about this now, and because if I try and do that, it tends to be rubbish. But if for what just pours out is in the first instant tends to be the most purest and best lyric really.
So it just comes natural.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Not that I'm professing to be the greatest lyric writer of all time, but that's for me. That's what is works best.
Probably my favorite song on the album is the track "Running."
Okay,
I really like that. What can you tell me about that track?
Well, that again was it a kind of what came out, but in my head, that's really about respecting women, and at the time it was all this Harvey Weinstein stuff was going on, and it's kind of this against people like Harvey Weinstein who take advantage of people, especially women, and basically having a lot of respect for women, and that's really what it's about, I think, in its purest form.
No, it's a great track. I mean, the album's quite short. There's 8 tracks. Was that intentional, or do you not have many songs written?
Well, we did. We didn't put a couple on in the end, which just didn't feel fitted. And then we had another song that I really wanted to put on, but James kind of ran out of steam. So we kind of got to where the songs are quite long. So when we looked at it, I think the running time is about 38 minutes, which is quite a long. So and we wanted it to be more of a musical album than a short burst of lots of pop songs. So I think that was the intention really, that we wanted to go at it with.
It's just the right length of an album, because especially these days, people don't have the attention span to sit down and listen to a fairly long album.
No, I agree with that, and I think we were a bit worried about it because some of the the intros are quite long and the outros are long, but on balance, we just with that we wanted to go that way, and I'm glad we stuck to our guns. I think we could have put another couple of songs on which maybe weren't quite as strong, and then it would have weakened it. So I'm glad we made the decision in the end.
Which song on the album means most to you?
Well, I suppose, in the end, maybe the last one on the album. I originally were going to call this Hippie Commune is one, and then the last one is was meant to be Hippie Commune Part 2, which was really just to kind of going back to our time in the early 90s when we were out in clubs, around the Hacienda and all that, and the feeling that was a part of that time, and how good that felt for us all to be around that time. So it kind of was trying to evoke that kind of feeling, and I suppose tying it into the hippie movement of the 60s. It was a kind of similar feeling at that time, I thought, where people were, you go to a club, everyone would be slightly off their heads, but you'd be, the feeling you had of oneness and getting on with each other for that moment was a really great feeling. So he's kind of trying to capture that, really.
Well, I was never at the Hacienda, but I know, I grew up around about the same time and experienced what you're talking about in the clubs and stuff like that over here. What a time, there's never been a time, since, really, I feel sorry for the younger ones.
Well, that's it. In the garden, I was trying to think of the word of the song, but that's what it felt like to us. We were, in this garden, and it was just, we were like, what, 19, worlds ahead of you, it was just a great time, I think. And as you say, music doesn't seem to be the same since. I don't know, everyone likes their own generation of music, don't they? But it was just a great time to be around. So we try to capture that, really.
We were talking about when everything calms down next year. Do you have any plans to go out on the road with the album?
We do, actually. We'd like to do some gigs. I don't think we'd do like big tours, but we'd like to do, one around Manchester, a couple around the Northwest, and maybe one in London. And we've got a couple of festivals. There's one at Shine that we've committed to. So yeah, we definitely would. It's something that, ironically, it's harder for us to play live than it is to do an album, because we all live in different parts of the country. We all got to rehearse. You got to build up to it. We're not the most prolific of touring over the years, so it's a bigger jump for us than doing an album. So something we have to build up to a bit more. But I think certainly the intention this year was to do 5 or 6 gigs if we could, but obviously that went out the window.
Have you thought about live streaming? Everybody seems to be jumping on that at the moment.
No, that's probably a good idea to do that, actually. Yeah, I think, again, we'd have to get together, rehearse. It's like my brother lives down near Peterborough, a couple of the guys live up in Lancaster and South and Barney. It's still homeboys around Burnley area, but it's just getting together to rehearse so that when we do, go out there, that we don't make a fool of ourselves, really.
No, I think
we did enough bad gigs in the past not to add any more to the.
Well, the songs on the album are strong enough. Acoustically, I could just imagine them being played acoustically.
Yeah. No, I think I'd like to do that, and actually, more and more, they're all born out being played on the acoustic guitar. So, that's probably a really good way of doing it. I think maybe as things ease, come February's time, that's something we'll try and do. I think maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah, it'd be good to see. The band's been around about 30 years. What drives you to keep on making music after all these years?
I don't know, really. Barney, he's still in the music business. He tours. He's a great keyboard player, and he does his bit with he's Jerry Lee Lewis, actually, and quite a big tribute act doing that. But for me, I suppose it's like it's just something I'll always go to. Not every day, but every week I'll go and strum the guitar and play. So it's something that I'll always want to do. Always enjoy doing. And then I think we all get that itch every now and then to get together. And the other side of it is it gives us a good excuse to get together, because we've all been friends a long time, but we don't see each other on a regular basis. But when we do, we always we have a good time, have a few drinks, play some music. So I think that will always be part of it. And we can is the other reason. We've got this band that we formed, you know, we went through some highs and then went through some lows, and now it's kind of, you know, we've got not the biggest fan base, but we've got a, you know, really cool fan base who you know, really like what we do. So it's really nice to be in that position, really, you know. So it just feels quite right to do it.
Well, you mentioned highs as well. Or looking back, what would be probably your fondest memory of the early days of the band?
Talking about the first, we remember we first signed to EMI, our publishing, and we managed to buy an orange van, and we had an agent at the time who was convinced that the best way to do it was just to get us loads of gigs. So we did like 30-day tours, you know, almost in a month off another. So we just drive around, and it always seems to be in spring. We always seem to be sunny, and so that was a great time. Getting into the charts and touring with the Lars, that was a great time because we had a lot of respect for the Lars, and that was a great tour when we were both kind of, I think, in the charts at the time. So it was sellout shows, and then we'd fly off to America. So that period was really great. The sad thing was for us, it only lasted, the actual success for us lasted for about 3 months, and then it was seemed to all change. So it could have gone a few more months longer, but we had, at the time, you know, we had a really good 4 or 5 years getting there, then enjoying it when we arrived. So that, and then it was, after that, it came a bit of a slog, really, and we, you know, but yeah, no, those were probably the best times.
Well, funny you mentioned driving out in vans, which all bands do. Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters is actually making a documentary about and interviewing bands who, and you know, talking about traveling around in their vans and stuff. You know, back in the early days.
There's such a, because it's only, I think we're all taking turns to drive to the next venue, and we'd actually turn up with nowhere to stay, but we always end up managing. You know, I mean, we turn up in Ipswich, and you'd meet somebody, go back to their house or whatever. You know, somebody put us up. It was just a very free nomadic existence at the time. So yeah, it was, getting there was probably more fun than actually being there.
The vans breaking down and stuff, and
yeah, all that, you know,
dodgy service stations.
Yeah. And then we graduated to B&Bs, and then it was we knew all the bed and breakfast places, and then it eventually got to some hotels, and then it was back to B&Bs, and then
Well, say it's been 30 years. What ambitions is there left for Milltown Brothers? What do you want to
do? You always hope. I mean, honestly, you always hope that somebody's going to pick up on a song and it gets a bit of traction. You know, whether it's, you know, I work in TV, whether they put it on a film or something. But I suppose that's the aim. You know. But then again, that would probably have complications. It's to be well regarded. I mean, you know, very kindly you said you like the album. That means a lot, you know, because the other thing is that the longer you leave it, you put something out, and people might just think, oh, that's, you know, what you've done there is pretty crap, guys, and you know, so you always, there's that. You challenge yourself to keep going, keep maybe changing a bit every time we do it, try something different, but yeah, it's not to be, obviously, I don't think we want to be out on the road touring all the time. It's not something that we want to do. It's just, you know, maybe get more people to hear it, I think, is the honest answer. You know, we'd like to get a little bit more recognition for our stuff, but it's not the driving factor.
Yeah, well, you know, love it or hate it, but the likes of streaming service such as Spotify, I still think, you know, from a fan's point of view, it's a great way to discover new music. Have you found that people have discovered your music through such things as streaming services?
Yeah, we started, definitely. And we always, I mean, yeah, I suppose you don't get too many bad comments, do you? But we get a lot of nice comments from that. And actually, you can see how over the years, the figures have gone up, actually, for people watching and streaming us now. So yeah, I think personally, I think that's a really good way, because it doesn't mean, I always feel a bit odd out charging people to buy our album. I much prefer to put it out there and get as many people to listen to it, rather than, you know, trying to charge somebody £7 or whatever for something. I'd rather that way. But I think there's still people who want the physical thing. But for me, Spotify, I use Spotify. I think it's great. I know there's a bit of controversy around it in terms of how big artists get any money out of it. But for people like us, I think it's a fantastic tool to get our music out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the last question, Matt, that I ask everyone. Out of all the records in your collection, who do you have the most albums by?
Neil Young.
You know?
Neil Young. I think if I was to, he's definitely my number one go-to artist. So yeah, Neil Young. Then going back, it'd be REM, I suppose. Early REM. It's quite funny. And my son's very much into. He's 90s into music, and all the bands. You know, he loves Murmur and all the bands he really likes. I'd say, you know, we played with a lot of those bands. You know, so it's. But yeah, I think it always goes back to Neil Young for me. Bit of Bob Dylan, but I think Neil Young would be my ultimate artist.
It's funny you said REM. I'm currently reading a book about them at the moment.
Oh, right, yeah, they just stopped, didn't they? They just decided that was they've had, you know. But listening back to I mean, particularly their early stuff meant a lot to me when I was like 15, 16, 17, whatever, growing up. It was a big influence on us, I have to say.
Yeah, an amazing band.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to mention that we haven't talked about?
No, it's great. I mean, I really appreciate you, you know, giving us the time. Thanks for your support and everything. But no, that's yeah. Hopefully, you know, people we're proud of what we do. You know, we're in it for the right reasons. We're still the five of us who you know, started it off, and I think that's something that we you know, we're proud of. We still get on after all these years. So
it's unusual.
Yeah. Maybe because we don't see each other every 5 years, but no, it's yeah, something that we're proud of. You know, we'll keep it going.